Welcome to a deep dive. Are you someone who maybe sometimes feels a bit misunderstood?
Or perhaps you find those difficult conversations, well, difficult.
Yeah. Or maybe just connecting genuinely with people, whether it's, at work or home or just out there.
Well, today we're exploring some really fascinating insights, drawing from excerpts of a classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
A book that's really stood the test of time, hasn't it? It's helped millions figure out this whole art of getting along.
That's right. And our sources today really dig into where these ideas originated and lay out some key principles, really fundamental stuff for human interaction.
So our mission here is to unpack these principles from the source material.
See how they might offer maybe a shortcut to feeling more effective, better understood.
And maybe just having richer relationships all around.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump in. Where did this whole approach even, start?
Well, it goes back to New York, 1912. The author was running these educational courses for adults, business, and professional types.
Okay.
Initially, the whole focus was just public speaking, training people to think on their feet, express themselves clearly, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. Public speaking, definitely a key skill then and now.
Absolutely. But he quickly realized something else. What people needed to speak well, they needed something more.
More than just speaking.
Yeah, he saw this profound need for training and what he called the fine art of getting along with people in their daily lives, business, social stuff.
Wow. That's a big shift. You can be the best speaker ever, but if you can't connect.
It doesn't really matter much, does it? And it wasn't just his gut feeling.
No.
No, it was backed up by some pretty serious research. The University of Chicago and the United YMCA schools did this huge survey.
How huge are we talking?
Cost $25,000 back then, a lot of money, and took 2 years. They went to Meriden, Connecticut, a sort of typical American town,
Okay.
and asked adults about their lives, what interested them, what they really wanted to learn.
And the results?
Well, number one interest was health, no surprise there. But number two, people. How to understand them, how to get along, how to make people like you, how to win them over to your way of thinking.
Huh. So even way back then, this is a major thing for people. The need to connect and, influence.
Exactly. And the interesting part, when they looked for a practical textbook on this, they couldn't find one.
Really? Nothing.
An authority told them, basically, the book they needed hadn't been written yet. And that gap, that void, is what inspired the author. He needed a practical guide for his own teaching, too.
So he decided to write it himself. But he didn't just, sit in a room and theorize, did he?
No, not at all. He gathered real-world insights. He personally interviewed scores of successful people, famous people, to figure out their techniques.
Like who? Anyone we'd know.
Oh, yeah. Inventors like Marconi and Edison.
Wow.
Political figures like Franklin D. Roosevelt, James Farley. Business leaders like Owen D. Young. Even, stars of the day like Clark Gable and Mary Pickford. Explorers like Martin Johnson.
So a real cross-section of successful people.
He wanted to know how they handled people, what actually worked.
Smart. Learning from the best in different fields.
Very. And he took all that research, all those observations, and distilled it first into just a short talk.
Yeah.
How to win friends and influence people. It was so popular, it grew into this longer, 90-minute lecture he gave for years in his courses. The book basically grew out of all that practical, real-world experience.
And people in those early courses, they saw results.
No,
Right?
big time. Astonishing, the sources say. Spouses saying their homes were happier. People just amazed, saying it felt like magic sometimes.
Magic.
Yeah, they'd stay up all night talking about these ideas, realizing their own mistakes maybe, and just feeling this new possibility, this richer world opening up in how they interacted.
That really says something about how fundamental this stuff is. It hits a nerve.
It absolutely does. Which brings us nicely to, what the sources point to as a core fundamental driver in human nature, something that underlies a lot of these principles.
Okay, what's that core drive?
The desire for a feeling of importance.
A feeling of importance, not just food and shelter, but significance.
Exactly. Think about how powerful that is. It's the desire that, the sources suggest, inspired Dickens to write his novels, Sir Christopher Wren to design his incredible buildings, or drove someone like Rockefeller to pile up millions he never even spent.
So building empires or creating art, isn't just for the thing itself, but maybe for that feeling of significance it brings.
The sources strongly suggest it's a massive motivator. It's behind building houses that are way too big,
Right.
or keeping up with the latest fashion, driving the newest car, constantly talking about how brilliant your kids are.
Okay, I see that. But it can show up in negative ways too, I bet.
Unfortunately, yeah. The sources mention it drives some young people into gangs, criminal stuff, often looking for that recognition or status.
That feeling of importance within the group.
Right. And many criminals, people like Al Capone or Dutch Schultz, they didn't see themselves as bad guys. They rationalized everything. Capone saw himself as a public benefactor, bizarrely enough.
Because they crave that feeling of importance.
In part, yes. It's powerful. Even millionaires funding expeditions just to get mountains named after them. Victor Hugo apparently wanted Paris renamed in his honor.
Seriously.
And Shakespeare wanted a coat of arms for his family name. It seems like almost nobody is immune to this drive.
Yeah, it seems universal.
The source even shares some really poignant examples. People becoming invalids, essentially, to gain sympathy and attention.
Using illness to feel important.
Yeah. The story of Mrs. McKinley is striking. She apparently used her illness to demand President McKinley's constant attention, even interrupting state affairs like a dental appointment he had.
Wow, that's intense. Using illness for control.
It is. And there's another angle from a head physician at a psychiatric hospital. He told the author that many people who go insane find a feeling of importance in their delusions that they couldn't get in reality.
That's incredibly sad.
He shared the story of a patient, Lady Smith, who found importance by imagining she was divorcing her husband and marrying into English aristocracy.
Inventing a reality to get that feeling.
Yeah.
It really shows how deep that need goes.
It absolutely does. And this is where the sources make a really critical connection.
Okay.
If people crave this feeling of importance so desperately that some will literally lose touch with reality to find it, imagine the miracles, as the sources put it, you can achieve by giving people honest appreciation, this side of insanity.
Ah, so connecting that deep human need directly to a practical principle.
Yeah.
Honest appreciation.
Exactly. That's a cornerstone principle the sources hammer home. And this is crucial, it has to be distinguished from flattery.
Right. Flattery feels fake.
So sources are really clear. Flattery is shallow, it's selfish, it's insincere, and it usually just falls flat. Honest appreciation, though, comes from genuinely finding something to admire or value.
It has to be real. You can't just make stuff up.
Precisely. Think about Charles Schwab. He was one of the highest paid execs back then, early 20th century. Andrew Carnegie picked him to head U.S. Steel.
Okay.
The sources imply Carnegie genuinely saw and appreciated Schwab's abilities. And that appreciation likely fueled Schwab's success and loyalty.
That kind of real recognition must be incredibly motivating.
It is. The sources even mention a study about runaway wives. The main reason given, lack of appreciation.
Wow.
And they suggest it's probably the same for husbands. We often forget to give the simple thing to the people closest to us.
There's a story about that, right? Someone in the author's class whose wife asked him for 6 things he'd change about her.
Yes. He told the class he was, totally surprised.
Yeah.
And he admitted, it would have been easy to list 6 things that annoyed him,
Yeah.
but instead he decided to think about it overnight. The point being, he deliberately chose to shift his focus from fault-finding to finding things he could genuinely appreciate about her.
That's a conscious effort, isn't it? Looking for the good.
A very conscious, very powerful one. And maybe one of the most moving examples of appreciation's impact is that Paul Harvey story about the teacher in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
She showed appreciation for a young blind student's really sharp hearing, asked him to help find a lost mouse by listening for it.
Yeah.
He later said that simple act, appreciating a skill he actually had, was the beginning of his new life. That student was Stevie Morris.
Who became Stevie Wonder.
Exactly.
Wow. A single moment of genuine appreciation, unlocking a life's potential. That's incredible.
It really is. Now, closely tied to giving appreciation is another big principle the sources bring up, avoiding criticism.
Avoiding criticism, that sounds hard. Isn't feedback important? Don't people need to know when they mess up?
Well, the argument in the sources is that condemnation, harsh criticism, it rarely leads to lasting positive change, and it almost always just breeds resentment.
Because it makes people defensive.
Exactly. Remember the criminals we talked about? Al Capone, Dutch Schultz? They didn't condemn themselves. They rationalized. Warden Laws from Sing Sing said most inmates did the same. They didn't see themselves as bad.
Criticism just makes them double down on justifying themselves. Hits their sense of importance, maybe?
Precisely. It feels like an attack. The sources even bring up Abraham Lincoln's famous letter to General Meade after Gettysburg.
Oh, right, when Lee escaped.
Yeah, Lincoln, who is usually so restrained, was incredibly upset. He wrote Meade saying his golden opportunity is gone, and he was distressed immeasurably.
Ouch. That's heavy, even if Lincoln felt it was true.
It is, and it highlights how even arguably justified criticism from someone like Lincoln can be crushing. And
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily fix anything. The main point is condemnation rarely changes people for the better. It usually just makes them resent you.
Okay, so if we're focusing on appreciation, trying to avoid criticism,
Mm-hmm.
what else is key for really connecting with people?
Becoming genuinely interested in other people.
Genuinely interested. Sounds simple enough. How do the sources illustrate that?
Well, the author actually used this himself. He wanted some famous authors, Kathleen Norris, Fannie Hurst, to speak to his writing class. Big names, very busy.
So how do you approach them?
Instead of just asking for a favor or offering money right away, he wrote letters expressing sincere admiration for their work. He said he genuinely wanted to learn from them, get their advice, find out the secrets of their success.
So he focused on his interest in them, not just what he wanted from them.
Exactly. And because that interest was real, sincere, he got their attention, got their cooperation. It goes back to that quote from the Roman poet Publius Syrus, like 2,000 years ago.
Which it was?
We are interested in others when they are interested in us.
It's reciprocal. Makes sense.
It is. And the sources really stress this interest has to be sincere, not just a trick, a genuine curiosity. It's a two-way street.
Got it.
There's a story about Martin Ginsburg, one of the author's students. He talked about how a nurse showed special interest in him during a really tough time and how much that profoundly affected his life, just feeling seen, cared about.
That totally makes sense. When someone's really interested in you, you feel valued, which ties right back to that core need for importance we talked about.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that signal value and cost nothing, the sources really emphasize the power of a smile.
A smile, such a simple thing.
A genuine one, though, a warm smile. They quote a psychologist, Professor James V. McConnell, who said people who smile tend to manage, teach, and sell more effectively. Raise happier kids, too.
Why?
He said there's far more information in a smile than a frown. Basically, encouragement works better than punishment. A smile sends that positive signal.
So a smile isn't just like facial muscles. It's communication.
A powerful form. It signals warmth, openness, positivity. The source tells this story about a broker who shared an office with the author. At first, the broker thought the author was a terrible grouch, just grumpy all the time.
Why?
But when the author started consciously applying these principles, including making an effort to smile, the broker's whole perception changed. He noticed the shift. And then the broker started trying the principles himself, appreciation, smiling, and said it revolutionized his own life. More friends, happier.
Okay, but what if you're just having a really bad day? You don't feel like smiling.
The sources are practical about this. They actually say, force yourself.
Force it.
Yeah, force yourself to smile. Or whistle, hum a tune, sing, act as if you are happy. The idea is that the action itself can actually help create the feeling.
Ah, that William James idea, right? Act the way you want to feel.
Exactly. Regulating your actions, which you can control, can indirectly regulate your feelings, which are harder to control directly.
So the outside can influence the inside.
That's the argument. The sources say happiness depends more on your inner attitude than, your external circumstances. They mention seeing happy peasants working hard in the heat and miserable people in fancy air-conditioned offices. A smile can be a tool for your own state, too.
There's that beautiful quote about the value of a smile
Okay.
in the source material, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, from that department store ad, the value of a smile at Christmas. It's lovely. It says a smile costs nothing but creates so much, enriches both the giver and receiver, builds goodwill.
It's like rest for the weary, an antidote for trouble.
Exactly. And you can't buy it, beg it, borrow it, or steal it. And the best part,
What's that?
it suggests if the salesperson is too tired to give you one, you should leave one of yours. Because nobody needs a smile more than someone who has none left to give.
That's wow. Really makes you think.
It really captures the spirit. And finally, tied closely to being interested and valuing people is remembering and using their name.
Oh, that's a big one.
The sources call it Principle 3, specifically stating a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language to that person.
The sweetest and most important sound. So personal, isn't it? Our name is, like, Us.
It really is. And forgetting it or not bothering to use it can make someone feel insignificant, overlooked.
Yeah, definitely.
The sources mention this guy, Ken Nottingham, ate at his company cafeteria every day, noticed the woman serving sandwiches always seemed annoyed, scowling. He felt like she saw him and everyone else as just another sandwich. Implying that if he'd just made the small effort to learn and use her name, show a little genuine interest, it could have totally changed that daily interaction, her attitude towards him.
So these foundational things, really seeing the other person, appreciating them, not condemning, being genuinely interested, smiling, using their name, they all seem to boil down to making the other person feel valued, feel important.
They really do. They build that crucial connection, that foundation. And when you want to move beyond just connecting to actually influencing someone, these principles become even more critical.
How so?
The sources are crystal clear on this. The only way to influence people effectively is to talk in terms of what they want and show them how to get it.
Focus on their wants, their drives, not yours.
Exactly. Say you want your kid to stop smoking. Just preaching about the health risks you're worried about probably won't work.
Right. Been there.
Instead, show them how smoking might stop them from making the basketball team or winning that race things they actually desire.
Shifting the motivation from your concern to their goal.
It's way more powerful. This source gives that classic example of Ralph Waldo Emerson and his son trying to get a calf into the barn.
Oh yeah, the calf story.
They're pushing, pulling, thinking only about what they want. The calf naturally digs its heels in, thinking only about what it wants.
Makes sense.
But then the Irish housemaid comes along. She has, as the source puts it, calf sense. She figures out what the calf wants, probably to suckle something, so she puts her finger in its mouth.
And just leads it in?
Gently leads it right into the barn. She found the calf's motivation.
That's the key, isn't it? Finding their internal drive.
It is. They quote the psychologist Harry A. Overstreet, who said, "Action springs out of what we fundamentally desire. First, arouse in the other person an eager want." He said the person who can do that has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way.
Walks a lonely way. That really puts a point on it. The cost of not getting this.
It really does. Andrew Carnegie apparently only had 4 years of school, but he understood this principle deeply, learned it early, and it made him incredibly effective with people.
Do the sources give any modern examples of this working?
Yep. There's the story of Barbara L. Anderson. She was moving to Phoenix, needed a job in banking.
Okay.
Instead of sending out standard resumes, listing her qualifications, saying what she wanted,
She did what?
she wrote letters tailored to each bank, focusing entirely on how she could help them achieve their goals, meet their needs.
Framing her value in terms of their benefit.
Exactly. All about their wants. The result. 11 out of the 12 banks she wrote to invited her for an interview. She had multiple job offers.
Wow. That's effective.
It's contrasted sharply with the story of a college grad trying to get guys to play basketball just by saying, "Hey, I want you to come play. I like basketball. I want to play." Didn't work.
It's that difference between here's what I want and here's how I can help you get what you want. Completely different framing.
Totally. Another really powerful example is the father whose young son was underweight and wouldn't eat.
Right, the parents were nagging him.
Yeah, mother wants you to eat this, father wants you to grow big.
Trying to motivate a little kid with adult logic. Good luck with that.
The sources call it absurd. The father finally stopped and asked himself, okay, wait, what does that boy want? How can I connect what I want to what he wants?
Smart question.
Yep.
What did the boy want?
Turns out he wanted revenge on a bully who was picking on him. That anger, that pride, that was his strong motivator.
So the father.
The father tied eating the healthy food directly to getting big and strong enough to eventually, quote, wallop the daylights out of the bigger kid.
He connected eating to the kid's desire for revenge.
And bam, diet problem solved instantly. The boy apparently would have eaten spinach, castor oil, anything to get big enough to beat that bully. It all comes back to finding and tapping into the other person's eager want.
It really sounds like understanding their perspective is absolutely crucial, not just for influencing action, but also when things go sideways, like in disagreements or when mistakes happen.
Absolutely. The sources spend a lot of time on this. They point out, look, when you argue with someone, even if you win the argument logically,
You often lose the person.
pretty much, you rarely change their mind because their pride kicks in. It becomes incredibly hard for them to back down.
It stops being about the facts and becomes about defending their ego, right?
Totally. The sources quote Henry Ford on this. He said, if there is any one secret of success, It lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. Seeing it from their side. That's huge.
And one principle the sources share that feels really counterintuitive is about admitting you might be wrong.
It is counterintuitive for a lot of us, but the sources state it really bluntly. You will never get into trouble by admitting you might be wrong.
Never.
Never. In fact, doing it often disarms the other person immediately. It stops the argument cold and actually inspires them to be fairer.
But that takes humility, doesn't it? Our gut instinct is usually to dig in and defend.
It definitely takes humility, and the sources show what happens when you don't do it. Like that story of the young lawyer arguing before the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
A justice corrected him on a point of law, the statute of limitations or something. But the lawyer just insisted he was right, even though the justice, the Supreme Court justice was correct.
He prioritized being right over, well, everything else.
Pretty much. And the author shares his own experience, too. A friend criticized the price of some draperies he bought.
Saying they were too expensive.
Yeah, basically telling him the truth, but it reflected poorly on the author's judgment. His instant reaction, get defensive, justify the purchase. The source points out, few people like hearing truths that make them look bad.
Okay, so the principle is, if you are wrong, admit it. Quickly and emphatically.
Yes. There's a great story about a Mr. Crowley, a lumber salesman who used to lose sales because he kept winning arguments with customers.
Winning the argument, losing the sale, not ideal.
Not at all. So he changed his whole approach. A customer gets upset about a shipment, claims the lumber isn't right. Instead of arguing, Crowley just listens. He agrees to let the customer's own inspector keep checking the wood. He observes, asks questions.
Doesn't defend.
No, and then he actually takes responsibility, saying things like, yeah, the company should have been more careful sending that out.
By admitting potential fault, he changed the whole vibe.
Totally. He created this space where the customer felt heard, understood, not attacked. And that allowed the customer to look at the situation more objectively. And guess what?
The customer realized he was wrong.
Yep. The customer eventually realized the mistake was actually on his end. He hadn't specified the right grade of lumber he needed. He even started feeling guilty about putting perfectly good wood in the reject pile.
Wow. That's a complete turnaround.
Mm.
Just by admitting fault first.
Another fantastic example is Mr. Gaw, the printer. Had an angry customer storm in about a late order.
Okay, tense situation.
Instead of making excuses, Gaw immediately said, yes, you're absolutely right. It's entirely my fault. I apologize sincerely. He took full responsibility, offered to redo the entire job, no charge.
Just owned it completely.
Completely. And his eagerness to criticize himself just took all the wind out of the customer's sails. The customer ended up saying, oh, well, it's not that bad, praised Gaw's attitude, called the error miner, paid the bill, and even gave him another order.
Taking responsibility diffused the whole thing.
It often does. There's a similar story about an accountant who messed up. His boss calls him in. Even when the boss starts blaming other departments, the accountant just keeps saying, no, it was my fault.
Kept owning it.
Yeah. Eventually, the boss just goes, okay, it was your fault, now go fix it. The accountant felt great afterwards, relieved, and actually earned his boss's respect for taking ownership like that.
It builds trust instead of tearing it down with defensiveness.
It shows character. The sources hold up Robert E. Lee after Pickett's charge at Gettysburg as, like, the ultimate example.
What did he do?
As his defeated, broken troops were retreating, Lee rode out to meet them alone and said publicly, all this has been my fault. I and I alone have lost this battle.
Wow. To take that burden publicly, that's incredible courage.
Few leaders have that kind of strength. The sources call it one of the most beautiful things in history. It contrasts sharply with, say, the pain described by a Hong Kong class member estranged from his son.
What was the situation there?
The father desperately wanted reconciliation, but Chinese tradition dictated the younger person, the son, had to make the first move. So there was this terrible conflict between his deep desire for connection and clinging to this rigid tradition, this pride.
Highlighting the personal cost of prioritizing being right or following rules over that human need for connection.
Exactly. It shows the potential freedom in letting go of that pride, maybe admitting a fault, even if it's just a fault according to tradition.
So admitting mistakes, seeing their perspective, these things really build bridges, even in tough spots. What else do the sources suggest for building connection and maybe inspiring action?
Well, Woodrow Wilson had a great take on resolving differences. He said, basically, if you come at someone with your fists doubled, they'll just double their fists right back at you.
Makes sense. Meet aggression with aggression.
But if you approach saying, hey, let us sit down and take counsel together, aiming to understand why you differ, where the common ground might be, you often find you're not actually that far apart.
Create a space for collaboration, not conflict.
Exactly. And the sources offer this phrase, they call it a magic phrase, for stopping arguments and creating goodwill almost instantly.
Ooh, a magic phrase. What is it?
I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do.
If I were you, I'd feel the same way.
And the key is, you can often say this with complete sincerity. Because if you really think about it, given their background, their experiences, their environment, you probably would feel the same way.
It's about genuine empathy based on their context.
Right. The sources use that stark example. The only reason you're not a rattlesnake is because your parents weren't rattlesnakes. We're all shaped by our circumstances. Understanding that makes the empathy real, not manipulative.
Okay, got it. So once you build that understanding, that empathy.
Then you can inspire action by framing it from their viewpoint. Remember Mr. Mangum needing the hotel manager to agree to a longer escalator shutdown?
Yeah, for repairs.
He didn't argue. He started by acknowledging the manager's concern. I understand you want minimal shutdown time. That's important. He validated the manager's perspective first.
Okay.
Then he framed the longer shutdown needed for a thorough job in terms of avoiding something the manager really didn't want. More serious damage later, meaning a much longer shutdown, which he knew the manager would not want to inconvenience your guests for several days with.
He tied the action he needed, longer shutdown now, to helping the manager avoid a bigger pain point later, major guest hassle. Smart.
Won him over easily. Another great example is Joyce Norris, the piano teacher, and her student Babette with the long fingernails.
Right, long nails aren't great for piano.
Exactly. But instead of just ordering Babette to cut them, Mrs. Norris sympathized. She started by complimenting her attractive hands and beautiful fingernails, acknowledged something Babette valued.
Okay, softening the approach.
Then she framed trimming them not as a demand, but as a way to help Babette achieve her goal. Playing the piano much quicker and easier. She just suggested Babette, think about it.
Linking the action, trimming nails, to Babette's desire, play better, while respecting her pride in her nails.
Exactly. And guess what? Even though Babette apparently loved her nails, she came back the next week with them trimmed, told her mom it was her own decision. Mrs. Norris appealed to Babette's desire and acknowledged the sacrifice.
It really seems like appealing to their existing desires, their needs, maybe even their nobler side is key.
Yeah, the sources touch on appealing to nobler motives, too. The idea that people want to see themselves as fair, honest, decent. If you assume they are, they often try to live up to it.
That's another layer of understanding motivation.
And sometimes, just presenting your ideas isn't enough. You need to dramatize them, make them stand out.
Traumatize them.
How? There's a story about a salesman selling cold cream. The buyer only gave him 10 minutes. Busy guy.
Okay, cuff spot.
So instead of just rattling off facts and figures, the salesman brought out this display. Jars with little tags showing the different ingredients, their value, making it visual, tangible.
Show, don't just tell. Making the abstract concrete.
Exactly. It immediately grabbed the buyer's attention. That quick 10-minute slot turned into an hour-long conversation because the buyer got so engaged with the dramatized presentation.
Makes sense. And what about challenges?
Right. The sources also highlight the power of throwing down a challenge, appealing to that competitive spirit, that desire to prove oneself.
Like Theodore Roosevelt overcoming his health issues as a boy.
That's one example. Another is how Governor Al Smith got Lewis Laws to take the incredibly difficult job as warden of Sing Sing prison.
How do you do it? Just offer him the job.
No, he challenged him. He basically said, look, it's going to take a big person to go up there and stay. He framed it as a test of Law's capability, his grit.
Appealing to his desire for importance, for achievement, making it more than just a job offer.
Exactly. It tapped into something deeper.
Okay, so we've got all these ways to connect and influence, understanding wants, empathy, dramatization, challenge. How does this fit with giving feedback or correcting mistakes without falling back into that criticism trap or just giving blunt orders?
Great question. The sources have principles for that too. One big one is asking questions instead of giving direct orders.
Asking questions.
Yeah.
Rather than telling someone what to do. How does that work?
There's an example of a manager needing a rush job on a printing order. Big pressure.
Okay.
Instead of just barking, speed it up, work faster. He got everyone together. He explained the situation, why it was important, and then he started asking questions.
Like what?
Like, is there anything we can do to handle this order? Or can anyone think of different ways we might process this to meet the deadline?
So he involved them, made it collaborative.
Exactly. It empowers people, makes them feel part of the solution, taps into their own ideas rather than just making them feel bossed around.
Makes sense. What
Related to that is calling attention to mistakes indirectly.
indirectly, like hinting.
Sort of. One simple technique suggested is changing the word but to and when giving feedback.
But versus and. How does that change things?
Well, think about it. If you say, Johnny, we're really proud you raised your grades this term, but your algebra is still low. That but just cancels out the praise, right?
Yeah, it makes the praise feel like just a setup for the criticism.
Exactly. But if you say, Johnny, we're really proud you raised your grades this term, and by continuing the same great effort next term, your algebra grade can be right up there with the others.
The and makes it feel like a continuation, a path forward, not a negation.
Right. It avoids that feeling of failure right after getting praise. Works really well with sensitive people. The sources also mention Marge Jacob getting construction workers to clean up their messy site indirectly.
How? It doesn't say exactly.
Doesn't detail it, but implies she probably appealed to their sense of professionalism or pride in their work or maybe safety standards rather than just saying, hey, clean up this mess.
Got it. Okay, but what if you do need to address a mistake more directly, maybe with someone you supervise?
Then the principle is, talk about your own mistakes first before criticizing the other person.
Start with your own flaws.
Yeah. The author described how he'd handle it with his secretary, Josephine, if she made mistakes, say, calculating baseball batting averages. He wouldn't just point out the error.
What would he do?
He'd start by saying something like, you know, Josephine, you're much better at this than I was at your age. I made so many blunders myself. He'd admit his own fallibility first, express hesitation to criticize.
Establishing common ground, showing humility.
Exactly. Then he might ask gently, don't you think it might have been wiser to do it this way? Framing it as a question for her reflection, not a direct accusation.
Disarming defenses, encouraging self-correction. Very different feel.
Totally. The sources mention von Bülow, the German chancellor, saving himself with Kaiser Wilhelm by flattering the Kaiser's superiority. Though they note he probably should have started by mentioning his own shortcomings first. The implication is clear. Humility plus praise works wonders.
Humility, seeing their perspective, asking questions, guiding indirectly. It all comes back to that fundamental respect, doesn't it?
It really does. And underpinning so much of this, especially when you're trying to help someone grow or improve, is the power of encouragement and praise.
We talked about appreciation, but this sounds even more focused.
Yeah. William James, the psychologist, gets quoted again. He believed the average person uses only about 10% of their latent ability.
Only 10%.
Crazy, right? He believed we all possess these untapped powers, including what he called the magic ability to praise people and inspire them.
So praise can actually unlock potential.
The sources state it incredibly powerfully. Abilities wither under criticism. They blossom under encouragement.
Wow. That's huge. Blossom under encouragement.
It really is. Principle 6 is super explicit about this. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise.
Hearty and lavish. Don't hold back on the praise.
Not if it's genuine. There's a story about Henry Henke, the service manager. He had a mechanic whose work was getting really shoddy.
So he laid into him. Threatened him.
No. Instead of yelling or threats, he had a sincere, private, heart-to-heart talk. Focused on encouragement, expressing belief in the mechanic's ability, and it turned the guy's work completely around.
Believing in someone made the difference.
Seems like it. Another one. Keith Roper had a new employee who was really struggling, making lots of mistakes.
So
He didn't criticize the overall poor performance. He waited. He watched until the employee produced just one piece of work that was exceptionally good, really high quality.
found the bright spot.
Exactly. Then he personally went to the employee, complimented that specific piece of work, pointed out exactly why it was superior, and explained how important that level of contribution was to the company.
Focusing on the positive example.
Yes. And praising that specific success inspired the employee. His performance started improving dramatically after that, reaching that higher standard more often.
That makes so much sense. Build on the successes, however small.
The sources actually summarize some key guidelines for leaders who want to change attitudes or behavior.
Oh yeah, like what?
Be sincere. Always focus on the benefit to the other person. Know exactly what you want them to do. Be empathetic. Try to understand what the other person really wants. Consider the benefits they will get from doing what you ask. Match those benefits to their wants, and then frame your request in a way that highlights that personal benefit to them.
So it's not just, hey, clean the stockroom because I said so.
Right. It's
Yeah.
more like, hey, if we keep the stockroom neat, it makes the whole operation look more efficient when clients visit, which reflects well on all of us, including you, and makes it a better place to work. You connect the task to their potential pride or desire for order or contribution to the team.
Connecting the what to their why.
Exactly. Last example on this. Dale O'Ferrier needed his son, Jeff, to pick up fallen pears in the yard. A chore the boy absolutely hated.
Okay, familiar problem for parents.
Dale made a deal. He offered Jeff money for every basket of pears he collected, but there was a penalty deducted for every pear left on the ground.
Turning a hated chore into a game, a challenge, with clear stakes.
Exactly. Tie the chore directly to Jeff's desire to earn money and his desire to avoid losing money. The result. Jeff not only picked up every single pear, he was apparently so into it, Dale had to watch him to make sure he wasn't pulling extra pears off the tree just to fill more baskets.
That's hilarious. He made the chore something the kid wanted to do.
It all comes back to shifting that perspective, finding their eager want.
And the sources talk about the real-world impact when people actually started using these principles, right? Like testimonials.
Oh, yeah, powerful ones. People saying their homes became happier, relationships improved dramatically, folks just astonished by the results they were seeing.
So this isn't just nice ideas. It actually works in practice.
Definitely. There's the story of the guy who was furious about his high tax bill. Normally, he'd just fume about it at home.
Right, complain but do nothing.
But after taking the course, learning these principles, he went to the town meeting. He applied the ideas to speak effectively, engage with people respectfully, present his case, and he ended up getting elected councilman.
Whoa, from angry taxpayer to councilman.
Yep. He figured it was like a 1,000% return on his course investment just from that one outcome, moving from passive frustration to actively shaping his community because he learned how to interact effectively.
That's amazing. Any others?
There was the head of a national association. Apparently, he was terrified of speaking, even at his own board meetings, just froze up.
Okay.
Learning these principles, how to think on his feet, connect with people, organize his thoughts, led to him eventually becoming president of the entire association. He started addressing meetings all over the country, getting his talks printed in the press.
Unlocking potential he probably didn't even know he had.
Exactly. And the sources also touch on the author's own journey. It wasn't like he was born knowing all this. He had early struggles, farm failures, tough commute to college, feeling despair as a salesman.
He learned this stuff the hard way.
Seems like it. He learned resilience, learned these human relations skills through hard observation, trial and error, real interactions, like apparently trading shoes for bacon when selling stuff. His own life was kind of a testament to these ideas.
So he lived the principles he ended up teaching, learned them from the ground up.
And even how he started teaching public speaking for the YMCA. They wouldn't pay him a salary, so he offered to teach just on commission, believing in his methods. Ended up earning way more that way.
Showed his confidence in what he was teaching.
Right. And he wrote his first book on public speaking because the existing textbooks were too academic, too dry for the business people who needed practical skills. It mirrors how to Win Friends filled that gap for practical human relations advice.
It all feels very grounded in real challenges, real experience, not just theory.
And just to bring back Professor William James one last time, that idea that the average person only develops 10% of their latent mental ability.
Yeah.
The sources suggest these methods, rooted in understanding and connecting with others, are basically a key to unlocking a lot more of that hidden potential in ourselves and in others.
Okay, so we've taken this deep dive into the sources, really explored these, timeless principles for getting along with people.
Yeah, from recognizing that fundamental human drive to feel important.
To the huge power of genuine appreciation over criticism.
And those simple but profound things like sincere interest, a real smile, remembering someone's name.
We've seen how influencing others isn't really about tricks or manipulation.
Not at all. It's about genuinely understanding their wants, their perspective.
Having the humility to admit when you're wrong.
Using empathy, asking questions that empower people, guiding indirectly.
And just consistently offering that heartfelt encouragement.
It's clear these aren't presented as quick fixes, are they? The sources really stress they need sincerity, a real shift in mindset, and you have to actually do them consistently.
Right. It's practice, not just theory.
But if you make that shift, the potential impact seems huge. Transforming a relationship, sure, but also maybe unlocking potential in yourself and helping inspire it in the people around you.
So the big question for you listening is, what does this all mean for you right now?
Yeah. If understanding and connecting really does unlock so much potential, what hidden abilities might you discover in yourself or in others?
Just by trying to put maybe one of these principles into practice today, what opportunities might you be missing out on? What connections might just be waiting?
Simply because you're not consistently making that effort to see things from the other person's point of view.
Definitely something to think about. Until our next deep dive.